The idea was to have science and creation brought out because there is no greater science than the creation of the universe. And we know that. Our scientists, past and present, know very little about our Earth and our fabulous universe. Still, yet they claim everything came about purely by chance and there's no supreme being, no God, who was in charge of this creation. Well, in this discourse, I plan on showing the science that God used in order to create this universe. And maybe we can pay a little attention to that. Scientists continue to learn more and more of the immensity and complexity of the universe, and it is that which God has known from the very beginning and calculated all specific requirements for the solar system, galaxies, gravitational influences, rotations of the stars and the planets, travel of the same, travel speeds, and yet the scientists claim that all happened under the Big Bang Theory. Well, I wonder from the very beginning how it is that the Big Bang Theory can reproduce nothing but round planets, no odd shapes, no ovals, nothing but round planets. Big Bang Theory does that. Well, God was there. He did the math and worked out all the intricate details. And I'll address a bit more on this later. But God did this work, not our science. The prophet David wrote, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, night after night showeth knowledge." That came from Psalms 141, 1 and 2. And if you glance at the sky at night, just glance, you can see the knowledge involved in that. The prophet Isaiah assures that God formed the earth, he created it not in vain, and formed it to be inhabited. Isaiah 45:18. Clearly, God formed it to be inhabited, and Genesis, the record of preparation of the earth, reveals that the principal resident of the earth was to be man, the principal resident. That the earth was to be inhabited was proved by the size of the earth. Get this now, size of the earth, its exact distance from the sun, that's 93 million miles or 8,000 miles in diameter, that's the size, and a little under 28,000 miles in circumference. God gave it a moon, which is very, very necessary. And he also showed this to be to our scientists by exposing them to our solar system. And how did he do that? I mentioned before, the diameter of the Earth is 8,000 miles, and that's important. This is a proper size to retain water vapor and create what the Bible calls a firmament, or the Earth's atmosphere. The smaller planets, such as Mercury, Venus, and Mars, don't have an atmosphere because they're too small and they allowed all the water vapor to escape. And the larger planets, such as Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, all are flooded with heavy water, and ice, and no breathable atmosphere. The Earth is also an exact distance from the sun, which I said before, to support life. It couldn't support life if it was less, such as Venus, 67 a million miles from the sun, or Mars. If it's Mars is too cold and Venus is too hot. So a little less or a little more would not satisfy life. When creating our first parents, God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it," important, thereby giving man dominion over the earth. And this is in Genesis 1:28. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. God gave his creatures the ability to procreate. A lot of people in the religion think that God creates every single being and everything. He does not. He gave us the ability to procreate. How this came about, our poor science is mute on that. They don't understand it. And to procreate, also to provide food. He provided food for every creature, every little living thing here on this earth. He provided food for everybody. It's there. Just get it. And every little thing he created, he also gave them the ability or the industriousness enough that they could provide for themselves a place to live. Think about that. If he hadn't done that, he'd have to provide places to live for every creature. And when the final canopy dropped, which the flood occurred from the firmament, God made man or gave man the idea that he's got to prepare an ark, which he would not have anticipated and thereby could not save his creatures from certain destruction. And science doesn't begin to explain that either. Since the flood, mankind has made very feeble effort to save his creatures, and many of them have gone into extinction. In fact, mankind itself would probably go to an extinction if it was left up to them, us, entirely. Man will be reclaimed from his disobedience. Given an opportunity to prove worthy of living in the marvelous home which the Maker has provided, they will be reclaimed. The whole earth will be as a Garden of Eden, fully inhabited, not by a dying race, but by a race restored to perfect life, fortified against sin by an experimental knowledge of the dire results of disobedience. And that's what we're getting now. We certainly are getting the dire results of disobedience and learning about it. While there will be no more harmful events such as storms, floods, earthquakes, drought, damaging fires, killing fires, and climate extremes, the four seasons will still prevail, but in a much milder manner. And this is evidenced in the Garden of Eden. The great project of restoring the dead and dying human race is termed in the Bible by the words resurrection. Peter, however, termed it times of restitution, where he says was spoken by God's holy prophets since the world began. That's in Acts 3:19 through 21. We'll get a little bit more about that later. Also, throughout the Bible, the Creator's plan is to give man dominion over the earth. Dominion over the earth. This must include all animals, nature, and the weather. Think about that. Ancient science concluded that the earth was flat, while later realizing that this is not true. They were challenged with the question as what was holding the earth up. Science had no decent answer. But God told us some 3,500 years ago, 3,500 years ago, in Job 26:7, that he supported the earth from nothing. Only the one who would really know what supports the earth would be able to say that and get away with it. Further, we're going to spend a little time in Job. And the Creator asked Job, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding." Our science would be further ahead in understanding if only they would study the Word of God. See Job 38, 4 through 6. Incidentally, man's home has foundations, has 7 of them, which are firmly established on what is believed to be a solid mass of nickel iron substance, which forms the hard core of the Earth's center. In making the Earth, the Encyclopedia of Modern Knowledge writes, that was Professor J.W. Gregory, 7 massive foundations support the upper crust of the Earth. They are located in North America, South America, Asia, Africa, Australia, and Europe gets 2 of them. We see Psalms 104, verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be removed forever? And in Job 38:4, God says that he laid the foundations of the earth. It takes a scientist, a giant scientist, mind-wise, to do that. God asked Job another important question concerning the earth. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who has stretched the line upon it? Job 38:5. The measurements are vital to establishing any kind of construction or creation. That is construction. They must be related to the surroundings, the circumstances, and so it was in designing the earth and the entire universe. The earth and the universe were designed at the same time. Preparation of the earth was different. So, how meaningful were the questions the Creator asked Job? Who hath laid the measures thereof, and who hath known that he stretched the line upon it? These questions were designed by the Creator to reveal that his wisdom and love in providing this wonderful home for humanity, our science, past and present, could not provide the reason for even one dimension required to create the universe. Certainly not until after it was created. Time is a very essential element of all God's work. Proof of this is that our seasons have not varied for the last 6,000 years. And God promised us that the seasons, though much more milder, will remain forever. Excuse me. In a previous discourse, I mentioned that Arcturus, a giant star, was and is traveling through our Milky Way galaxy. and it's traveling at the rate of 257 miles per second. And God said, He told Job, that it wasn't going to hit, will not hit, and didn't hit anything in all its travels. It's a huge, huge star. In that, if that doesn't convince science that it's not a chance that someone very powerful is in our control, nothing will. Science itself is tracking Arcturus, by the way, and they see the proof of it. To back up for a moment, God divided the Earth's preparatory work into 6 epochs, whereas the recent science chose to divide the same preparatory work into 5 periods, such as the Azoic period, the Paleozoic age, the Carboniferous era, Triassic period, and the Reptilian age. These are the preparatory periods for life on Earth, and science will acknowledge that. That's where these ages occurred. They like to say Bible days is what is foolish nonsense. The Bible day is foolish nonsense. Well, let's go look at the Bible. The Hebrew word yom, Yowm, has been translated to the word day and applied in the Old Testament as a literal day of either 12 or 24 hours, but sacred writers do not thus limit its use. If we look at the Bible some more, in Genesis 40, verse 4, and Joshua 24, verse 7, it is translated, the same word Yom is translated Caesar. In Exodus 13:10 and Leviticus 25:29 and Numbers 9:22, the word Yom is translated year. In Genesis 4:3 and 26:8, Yom is translated time. And these references clearly indicate that the meaning herewith is not limited to 24-hour day. And the Bible itself proves this when in Genesis 2:14, the entire period of preparation of the earth for man's inhabitation, the day that the Lord made the earth and the heavens, firmament, was again a single day according to the Bible. The entire preparation period of 42,000 years is termed as a day. So this day is not 24 hours, we know that for a fact. Near the end of the 6th epoch, in Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all the earth," and this includes all the animals and nature itself. 2 scientific truths are here set forth concerning the human anatomy. One, man's organisms are composed of chemical elements found on the surface of the earth. Man lives, as all other animals, by the virtue of the oxygen surrounding the entire earth, and this is called firmament, which we breathed in, which he breathed into his lungs, and then is distributed to the oxygenated blood is distributed to every part of the body. Even every hair on the entire body has a tiny vessel feeding blood to its base. Every single hair. Look at your arm for a minute. Man is truly wonderfully made in every detail. A year ago, I did some searching for some preparation for discourse on the human body and I found it to be most amazing. For example, man's ability to walk upright as opposed to using all fours. It needs a proper function of the eyes, which send messages to the brain, the inner ear, which also send messages to the brain, the sensitivity of the feet, messages again, and the brain itself has to process these messages properly, and of course, a proper construction of the body. All has to take place. And we do all of this without even thinking about it. Think about your construction that God made. Also, since man was created in the image of God, he could appreciate the higher things of life. While all God's works are perfect and therefore beautiful when viewed in their true light, nothing, nothing was said in the opening chapters of Genesis about the beauty of God's creation. The lower animals were not able to appreciate beauty. Man, even sometimes ahead of food and shelter requirements, is able to appreciate God's creation. The brute animals live primarily to eat, but man provided a beautiful Garden of Eden, which was pleasant to the sight, smell, and other higher senses for man. Genesis 3:6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree designed to make one wise, she took of the fruit herself. Now, you know who convinced her to take it, but still, it was a lot of the creation is for our benefit. And of course, we all know what happened then when they ate the fruit. Here is something very interesting. In chapter 3, verse 21, that's Genesis chapter 3, unto Adam also, unto his wife, did the Lord God make coats of skin and clothed them. Question: when did Eve become Adam's wife? Where did the coats of skin come from, and why were they closed? The answers are in the Bible. If you don't already know them, you can look them up. Another very, very interesting thing that I stumbled upon in preparing for this is 3-2-1. 3-2-1. In Genesis 3:21, God makes Adam and Eve as one and clothes them. Let's close on. In Ecclesiastes 3:21, God announces their destination, returning to dust. In Acts 3:21, God takes the restitution of the world and mankind and restores it. In Ephesians 3:21, unto the earthly overcomer will be honor and glory, and the world will not have an end. In Philippians 3:21, like unto his glorious body, the church receives an immortal body, gets to see Jesus and God and the Father. And in Revelations 3:21, God talks of the overcomers, the bride whose destination is in heaven. These are all 3-2-1, and I thought it was kind of interesting. In closing, science tells us that the world is soon coming to an end, the physical world. Bible tells us that it will be sooner than science thinks, and that's the present evil world. And the physical world will last forever. The new day for the world will be ushered in by the rising of the Sun of Righteousness. Malachi 4:2. The Son of Righteousness, of course, is Christ, and his faithful followers will be with him. These are brought forth from death in the first resurrection, and to live and reign with Christ, as it says in Revelation 20, verse 4 and 5. These are the righteous who shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Matthew 13:43. Meanwhile, man will have the opportunity to learn the advantages of obedience, which is now. This time is coming. Eventually, all will be awakened from the sleep of death, then armed with the knowledge gained through experience with evil, and those who accept the provisions of life made for them through Christ and obey the laws of righteousness and kingdom and force will be restored to human perfection. Then man, thoroughly educated in the evil of the past, will dwell in the light of Creator's countenance forever, enjoying the blessings, peace, health, and everlasting love. May the Lord add his blessing.